Well, Joy, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. And to get things started, if you could just tell our listeners your name and your company and tell us a little background.
My name is Joy Gendusa, and my company is PostcardMania. I started PostcardMania 22 years ago, June of 1998. It was actually an idea that came out of a bad experience. I had a small graphic design print brokerage, about 4 staff. And I wanted to grow my little firm. So I'm a graphic designer, but I used to be a graphic designer. I haven't done a graphic design personally in a really long time, but I designed a little postcard to mail to people to get more clients. And I was promoted to, now you have to understand this is 22 years ago. So I was promoted to by a company, a postcard company that only sold to the trade. And they were promoting 5,000 full color postcards for $425. Now, 22 years ago, I'm sure you weren't of working age yet. I can tell from looking at you. 22 years ago, I thought I could not even understand in my mind how they were offering such a cheap price. So I definitely jumped on board, and I designed a little postcard, and I overnighted them a CD with my design on it. And then they in turn overnighted me a proof. When I received that proof, there was their phone number in tiny 5-point font on my design. So I called them up and I asked them to please remove that because I sell printing and I don't want people going directly to them for printing. And they informed me that it would cost me $50 to remove it. So I just said, let me speak to your manager. And somebody else came on the phone and told me I didn't read the fine print and it's $50, but this is my first order. So they'll be so nice to not charge me and they'll remove it. Now that's literally hitting the delete key, to remove it. But this is how we keep our prices low. We promote on other people's marketing materials. I was like, okay. So I thanked them very much. I hung up the phone. I walked out of my office to my 3 staff and said, we're going to start a postcard company and we're going to call it PostcardMania. And we're not going to put our 800 number that we didn't have yet on our clients' cards. And that's pretty much how PostcardMania started. It was literally an idea born out of a bad experience.
Holy cow. Well, I love it. That seems like every great entrepreneurial story begins with something like that, some kind of a crisis or something happened that you didn't like. I love it.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy because whenever I tell that story, which is not that often, but when I'm asked about it, it's odd to, we'll be doing, I don't know how much in revenue this year, over 60 million, 65 million. I'm not even sure where we'll end up at the end of December. And I have 285 staff now. And that day that I came up with that idea, never in my wildest dreams did I ever think that I would be doing this, being the CEO of a company this size or growing like this, or you learn so much,
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. And I'm sure for our audience that's listening in, Joy, starting from where you did, I think a lot of entrepreneurs can relate to that, where it's kind of like the back of the cocktail napkin plan. It's like, well, we're gonna do it, we're gonna make it happen, and you did. And then all of a sudden it starts taking off. So were there some things that kind of happened or came along, or anything that you were doing maybe differently or unique comparatively in your industry that allowed you to start growing?
Well, first of all, there wasn't anybody competing with me back then. I was taking the very inexpensive postcard to the full color printing directly to the small business owner. Nobody else was doing that for that kind of a price. So I think our first price was $5,000 for $329. And then I learned from the people that I was brokering printing through how they were doing it so cheap. They were just ganging them up all on one sheet. So everybody was kind of sharing in the expensive part of the job, which was the make ready, or the getting the job ready to print is the expensive part. Once you get the paper going and all the colors are good, then it's all, very fast and it's over with. So we had to sell 18 customers to fill one sheet. And That was really hard. I already forgot what the question was. I just got shoved into like my misery of the beginning years. It definitely took me a couple of years to figure out, you know, what is my make break? What volume do I have to sell to actually turn a profit? I mean, it was a very interesting learning experience.
Yeah. So, well, and I find it interesting. So, you know, are you with your business? Are you doing the manufacturing now? Are you producing all of your products? So you went from being a graphic designer to now a marketing agency and a manufacturer. That's remarkable.
Yeah, I'm nodding at you. I don't know if you show the visual when you do the podcast. So yes, I swore I was never going to own printing equipment because printing equipment is uber expensive. And I swore I would never do it. But then in 2004, we bought the property we're on now, which was a old abandoned manufacturing facility with a giant backyard. So where I'm sitting right now is in a building that we built in 2009. But I bought the property in 2004 and I bought equipment in 2005, and my profits just obviously went up when I started doing, even though I had to buy $1 million equipment and a property, I got what's called an industrial revenue bond at the time, which is it's a very cheap loan that's backed by the government and a bank. You have to work through a bank. But now when I look back on it, I think the interest rate was like 4%. And back then that was like unheard of, you know, that was like the cheapest money you could get. And so it was a very reasonable monthly payment for me to buy the building and start putting equipment in it, something that we could afford at the time. So
That's really, really interesting. And, you know, one of the things I'd like to just talk a little bit about is the idea of direct mail in a digital world. And, you know, I love your branding, your marketing, your blog. It's so well done. It's got a spunky attitude. I love it. And for our audience, by the way, you've got to check out PostcardMania and check them out. We'll link everything in the show links for you to take a look at too. But the marketing's fantastic. But Joy, would you share, you know, I'm sure just some data, stats, or information about why direct mail is relevant today, or maybe even more relevant than it has been in, you know, 20 years that the internet has been thriving?
yeah. So I wouldn't say the internet's been thriving for 20 years. I'll disagree with you on that. I think 20
Okay.
years ago it was like, you know, what's Google? I mean, you know, it was not exactly, there were no metrics or anything like that back then. But yes, I agree with you that it's a crazy digital world. And I can tell you, and everybody listening to this I know will agree with me. And I'd love to hear from anybody that doesn't agree with me on this. But basically, you're so bombarded with digital messages that you don't look at them or you don't notice them. Whereas when you take a postcard and you flank that with matching digital ads, that's where you really hit the mark. You really get a tremendous ROI from that, because think about it. When you get your mail out of your mailbox, what do you do with it? What do you do with it?
Oh, I look
Right
at
away.
it.
Like right
Yeah.
away, or do you put it somewhere first? What do you do?
No, I'll shuffle through it while I'm walking in, but I set it on the counter to usually look at it, and then I'll go through it a little bit later when I sit down, and I've got some downtime for maybe 5-10 minutes to make sure I'm really going through it.
Okay, good. So does that mail ever jump up and interrupt you when you're trying to send an email or trying to read a blog, or no, it does not. I'll
No,
answer for you.
no.
Right. So the beauty about direct mail is that we get to look at it when we're ready to look at it. So, I mean, personally, in the morning, I'm looking at my email. I highlight the first one, I scroll to the bottom, and then with my command key, you know, my shift key, I get them all, and I just bulk delete all the promotional emails and I kind of like look through, you know, I'll stop because maybe there's one real email in there that I have to read, and then I'll continue after that. But with direct mail, your message is actually getting to the recipient, and the targeting is fantastic. I mean, you can target very accurately the types of people that your product would be good for. Even in your industry,
Hmm.
um, you know,
Y-
you can
Well,
target.
that's a good point. So let's talk about maybe a B2C business kind of gets it, who's focusing on consumers, where you could target households. Maybe talk through some broad categories, maybe how what a restaurant could do just from a hospitality standpoint, and maybe what just a home services business could do. Could you share about that?
Sure, I love home services because huge amount of our clients are home services, from carpet cleaning to roofers to HVAC to kitchen remodelers to, I mean, every kind of home services company can win really big with postcards. So I've seen incredible ROIs. We have, by the way, on our website at postcardmania.com, we have a massive amount of case studies across so many industries. I couldn't even tell you how many. Like we've serviced probably 400 different industries.
Hmm.
So and the home services are, there's so many in that category, and they're separated out by what exactly they do. So if people wanted to get ideas on how this could work well for their particular industry, I would invite them to go look at that, because there's just so, we have so much data on, I mean, it's ridiculous. Like how many times somebody should mail, how many cards, how many, what type of list, how do they target? Like every industry is different. And it
Hmm.
really depends on how aggressively your competitors are marketing in your area to know exactly what you need to do for your industry. But it's great to see a zillion companies, like schools. We do great with tutoring companies and little private schools, and you can just read like what exactly did they do, who did they target, and copy their design. If they're in a different area, if it's on our site, we have permission to share it, because we have a passion to help small business owners. And so we try to get our clients to kind of jump on that bandwagon and want to help other people, because it's like a karma world out there.
Sure. Well, I love that. And what about, certainly with the pandemic, and I've spoken with a few folks at your company and have, where they've been talking about how direct mail has been even more effective in the climate today, with more people being at home or spending more time at home. Would you talk to that a little bit?
I mean, we're seeing incredible results for our clients and for ourselves. We're having our third month in a row that's a highest ever month for us in this December. We just had a highest ever in November, October, and I think also September. And now we're going to have another highest ever month. So business owners are buying direct mail because direct mail is getting great results. And I always tell everybody, we have a product, we call it Everywhere Small Business, and it's basically direct mail flanked by digital ads and call tracking and mail tracking. We have a dashboard so that you can really see, like, I mean, I can't express enough. Obviously, you probably know this already, but repetition is everything. Everything. Like you need to be in front of people constantly so that when they're ready for your product, you're the one that they call, especially in the franchise that you have,
Mm-hmm.
restoration, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how do you do that? Well, you get in front of homeowners and then you follow up that direct mail campaign with tons of digital ads. Now they know who you are. That postcard literally makes you real and credible and local. And then when they start seeing those ads online, it's a reminder. So we feed tons of ads on the Google network, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Gmail ads, all surrounding that postcard campaign. And then you can track the results. So I don't know. I practice everything I preach. I mail 180,000 postcards every single week to promote PostcardMania. So that's why you've gotten postcards from me.
Yep. And I told you I've got the one posted up on my cork board that was written out. So yeah, I've kept it sitting right there from Zach. Yes.
My little child. That's hilarious.
Yes. Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
so I direct mail now, like during the pandemic, we have a dentist that was closed, but he could see emergency people, emergency. And most dentists said, I'm not going to market it. We have to be closed. So this one gentleman marketed like crazy during the lockdown. and got in a lot of new patients that never would have found him. And then it was up to him, obviously, to make them love him and want to come back and be a regular patient there. So we've seen a lot of, we did a, what do we do? We did like a daily update, a pandemic daily update from PostcardMania with lots of information for small businesses that had nothing to do with PostcardMania, just like where links to different things for different states. And that helped us a lot during the pandemic. Like, it made us a trusted vendor. But yeah, I don't know what else to tell you.
No, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And Joy, we always like to ask every guest as they come on this idea of misses, makes, and multipliers. So we'd love if you wouldn't mind sharing with us. We start with the miss first. If there's a miss or two that came along the way that you wouldn't mind sharing, and what you might have learned from it.
I looked at that question long and hard, and I thought, I do not have my attention on the past at all. So I'm thinking, like, what was a miss? What was a miss? I mean, I take a lot of shots, and some of them are home runs, and some of them, didn't work at all, but like nothing that my attention is completely stuck on. Um, and I feel like that's probably one of my most successful actions, is that I'm ridiculously positive and keeping my attention in the future. And I wish I had like a really great miss that your listeners could learn from, but I can't think of anything.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And, what I found in doing these interviews, and it's self-serving a little bit, because I love learning from other people and other successful people myself. And one of the things, a common theme that we're starting to see, is that very often the answer you gave is what we get a lot of times, where it's kind of thinking of it, that it wasn't really a miss. It was whatever happened, you learned from it, and you were able to adjust going forward. So I appreciate that. I really do.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about a make then. Hopefully there's a make that you wouldn't mind sharing, or something that happened that you could share with the audience.
Sure. I mean, so many things, first of all, practicing what I preach. I started out mailing 1,000 postcards a week for PostcardMania. I upped it to 2,500. I sort of hit a plateau, and it was when we hit the million mark. I was making about $20,000 a week in revenue, like a year into my business. And it was like taking 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. It was very like very plateau-ish feeling. And I'm sure you know what that feels like. It
Oh,
sucks.
yeah.
You're working really hard and you're not making those strides. And I decided I read an amazing datum. I use the Hubbard management system at PostcardMania. So one of the datums I learned there is this datum called gross income senior data. And that is the size, not the quality, of an organization's mailing list, and the number of mailings to it determines the gross income of that organization. So I went, okay, this was written in like the 60s. There was no digital nothing, So I thought, okay, the gross income. Okay, so the size, not the quality of my mailing list, the size, not the quality. All right, I am going to double my mail from 2,500 pieces a week to 5,000 pieces a week. I could barely afford to do that. I was paying myself about $800 a week at the time, and that's how much postage was for 5,000 pieces at that time. So I was like, oh, this is like a big amount of money for me. But I decided I already learned that it took about 4 weeks for us to close someone. So I decided I was going to do it for 6 weeks without fail, and not judge until after 6 weeks. And
Mhm.
I am not exaggerating. 5 weeks after I started that, we more than doubled our revenue. We jumped to over 50,000. And this was it in 2001 now? I think it was probably 2001 now, that when I did that.
Mm,
And it was a crazy year because it was around the time of September 11. And it
yeah.
was going crazy. So I doubled my revenue, and then I rode that for a long time at 5,000 pieces a week. For a very long time, we were doing, between 40 and 60,000 a week in revenue because of that change. And I had to hire more salespeople. So I would say that was like a really good make. It gave me a stable piece of information that I could operate off of. And in 22 years of doing this, I have never missed a single week of getting my mail out in the range that I'm mailing, ever.
Wow. That's
Like
impressive.
hurricanes, whatever BS is going on in the world, I get the mail out, even through, lockdown and COVID and stuff. So that's definitely a make.
Wow, that's impressive. That's really impressive. Well, Joy, let's talk about a multiplier and any kind of a multiplier, something you wouldn't mind sharing with us professionally, personally, through the business.
It's almost like the same answer. I feel like it's almost the same answer. Like I am so passionate about the direct mail. I would probably, makes and multipliers, are they synonymous?
Sometimes they are. Sometimes they are. We've had folks who sometimes have, when they've come on, it's been a personal thing that they've done. Some people have said they've once a week they would lock themselves in their room with no phones or electronics for an hour and just think and that was a big game changer for them. Or some people would use go for a walk, or some people would use the power of uh, uh, oh gosh, what's the word I'm trying to think of? The manifestation, where they would just, focus on just one thing, and that would be the only thing they would think about or talk about or write about, and, use these kinds of things. So,
Interesting.
just,
Yeah. Yeah, I would say probably like one of the best things that I've done for my company is who I've hired to help me.
mm,
So I hired Melissa Bradshaw when she was 19 years old. She's the president of my company now. She's been here for 22 years.
wow.
And Rob, the guy you spoke to, is her husband.
Oh, okay.
And he's my chief revenue officer. He started several years after she did, probably 5. She started dating him right away, but I was like, he cannot work here. I did not approve, but I love him. I love him to death now. So I've surrounded myself with really incredible people that are so loyal to me and to PostcardMania, to the whole group. They take such ownership of this company and their particular role in it. And that for me is a huge multiplier. Like without them, I don't know. It's like, yes, I have a great ability to choose good people, but to keep people 22 years, 17 years, 16 years, like my senior exec team have been here forever.
Wow, that's incredible. And I can tell you, and by the way, for our audience, this is not a promotional push or publicity. Joy didn't put me up to this, or there's no compensation changing hands here. But I can tell you, every person, including you, that I've dealt with on your team has been fantastic. The salespeople that I've spoken to, from the entry level conversation, phone call, discussion, I mean, it just truly a great culture that you have built and created to retain people. And you make it look like it's a lot of fun. And I appreciate that.
Oh, thank you so much. That is like the nicest thing anybody can say to me, honestly, aside from you look skinny today. That one is as big for me.
That too.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's huge for me because I love these people like so, so, so much. And they're such good people. And we really do have an amazing culture here. We actually have and I think your audience will appreciate this. We have a no office politics policy, a zero tolerance policy, no negative chatter, no office politics.
Mm,
So if you work at PostcardMania and you're not like a positive type person and you kind of get into sarcasm and making people feel shitty because even when you're joking, it's not going to work out for you here. That's not the environment we have. People
mm.
spend 8 hours. This is actually, I feel, for some people, the sanest part of their day is at work. You don't know what people are going through. And so we just want to make their experience, as long as you're a hard worker and positive and willing, you're going to do great here. And And it is really great culture. So I really appreciate you telling me that.
Yeah, no, yeah, I appreciate that. So, the final question we like to ask everyone is, what does success mean to you?
Oh, goodness. For me, success is really being able to pay my people like buckets of money, and I still have plenty for myself. So, success for me isn't necessarily financial for me. I mean, I'm not your typical. I don't own like lots of boats and houses. I mean, the Lake Lanier house that I told you about, we just got that, but that I don't. I live in a normal size home, and for me, it's being able to not have a tension on money, because then you never fight with your spouse, and then being able to pay the people who've backed me up all this time really, really, really well, so that they can do everything that makes their dreams come true. That's success for me.
Wow, that's incredible. Well, clearly you're a phenomenal leader, a great motivator, and great at team building, because from your team, from the stories you've shared, from the way that your staff and team interact with the customers, prospective customers all along the way is amazing. And as we close this out, Joy, is there anything you'd like to leave with our audience, or say that maybe you didn't have a chance to, or would like to tell the listeners?
Well, I hope that you got inspired to check out postcardmania.com and see if we're a good fit for your franchise, because we are passionate about getting results for small businesses. We are a printer, yes, but we're a marketing company first, and we are super results driven. So I want you to check us out. So that's all I'm hoping for. I'm hoping that you're inspired to try it.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.
I really appreciate you. It was really nice talking to you. I've done a lot of these podcast things, and you're really a doll. You're
Oh,
lovely.
well, well, thank you. I appreciate that.